A lot of what's going on in the Yucatan Peninsula is evidence of post-classic. Stuff southern is from the classic period. Coba kind of straddles both, and it has evidence from both periods.
No.
And it has this really fascinating stela that has a reference to what people talk about as the creation date of the Mayan Long Count calendar.
Which was 5,000 years ago?
Which is the one that people connect to 3,114 BC.
Which is supposed to end on December 21st this year, 2012.
Which is supposed to produce this cycle that then ends 2012. And so this one stela has information about that, the way they thought of that date, as opposed to how modern popular culture has changed that and turned it into something completely else. I would say one of the biggest misconceptions about the whole 2012 stuff is the idea that there was a 13 Baktun cycle. So this cycle of, so the Baktun is a period of time, right? It's a period of time of about 400 years, like 394. So if you have 13 of those, you're talking about 5,200 years. That's where you get the supposed 5,200-year cycle. Now, there's a couple of inscriptions, only a few in the whole Maya area, that record when this long count started, what its zero date was. And to get to that zero date, they did something a little bit funky. This stuff around the zero date, when their long count started, instead of writing it as all zeros, they wrote it as the end of a 13th Baktun, and then everything else was zero. And so then they went from there to the first. So it was like the 13 reset itself. So it effectively acted like a zero. So a lot of people have misunderstood this to mean that every time that thing comes to a 13, it's going to reset to zero and it's going to start everything all over again. But we have very clear inscriptions that the Maya themselves wrote. Mayan scribes who wrote this 13 ending in ancient times also wrote what was going to happen in the future, and they did not reset it. So there was no 13 Baktun cycle. It was a one-time event. Happened, they recorded it, and then they moved on from there. And the Coba stela has a really fanciful numerological record of that date, because they give you the 13, all the zeros, but then they give you 20 other 13s of larger periods that's all a part of. They're showing you it's this huge cosmic, numerologically wild time, but that was that one-off event. It's not supposed to happen every 13 Baktuns.
Coba is a fascinating site. There's many stelae there. They're weathered, so it's really hard, and especially you need to be able to read hieroglyphics.
Which is a challenge, right? I mean, it's a fascinating story, how we came to be able to read Mayan hieroglyphic writing. And it's only really within the last 10 to 15 years that we can be very confident with our readings. The stuff from the 70s, 80s, and maybe even some of the early 90s was a little more speculative. But scholars now have gotten to the point where they get the grammar, they get the syntax, they get the whole ball of wax. And so now when we read a text, we're reading it the way they would have read it back then.
Yeah, Coba, they have that beehive pyramid, which is like the church, and then there's a really larger pyramid structure where there's like this giant rope. It was really fun to climb.
And all next to the lake, right? So
yes, the Crocodile Lake. The lakes, the lagoons are connected.
And so, in many ways, so much of the architecture in Yucatan is connected to these water sources, right? Whether they're cenotes or natural lakes, of which there are relatively few.
And when you go to Coba, it's really fun. You need to either rent a bicycle or they have choices. Either you can walk, and it's so many acres, it's like you wouldn't be able to really see everything. So it's really good to rent a bicycle, or even they have people that will bicycle you around if you're too lazy to ride your own bicycle.
And it's still next to a relatively small village, so it's not the tourist manicured kind of site that you would find at Chichén Itzá or at even Mayapan, which is now becoming more of a tourist attraction.
And there's many stelae at Coba, and there's a stele under secured where nobody can touch it or anything. Maybe it's that stele that you're talking about with all the interesting hieroglyphics and the codex.
But what's nice about it as well is that you get a sense of the natural environment, what it was like to live in a Mayan world, and which is a lot of what they're trying to preserve with the bioreserves at Lake Siancan, what they're doing in the Lacandon forest further south in Mexico. They have reserves in Belize and Guatemala. Everywhere they're trying to find spaces where they can preserve the rainforest. And when we
Right.
see it, we see the same kind of world that the ancient Maya were living in before they started to build their
So much
massive
of
cities.
Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula is jungle, and it's fabulous. And it's so easy to go to Coba. It really is. I mean, from Cancun, it's an hour bus ride from Cancun to Playa del Carmen. Tulum is 1 hour past Playa del Carmen, and the Coba site is really close to Tulum. So you could do Coba one day and Tulum the next. Tulum is
Yeah,
fabulous
gorgeous site,
because it's the archaeological site on the water,
Right.
and that was their port for commerce.
And you can see the beachhead where the large seafaring canoes would have just come up and emptied everything out, and then they go right up onto the plaza. You have this beautiful structure that just sits right on the very edge and overlooking the turquoise waters. It's a fantastic site.
It's beautiful, and people spend a lot of time enjoying the beach area, and I
There's-
think the sea turtles nest there.
Maybe. I don't know about that. But there's some amazing murals there. So we haven't talked at all about the whole mural tradition in the
Oh,
Maya
please!
area.
There's the Temple of Murals, and so please, what is the mural tradition?
Right. So it changes a little bit in the post-classic, but we have murals that go all the way back to Bonampak, for example, on the classic site. But the one that's caused the most news lately has been the discovery at San Bartolo of these pre-classic murals. So this is also in the Yucatan Peninsula in the northern area, but it's extremely early. It's like 100 AD. And it shows a lot of the same ideas that we get in the Popol Vuh, so in Mayan religion, but shows them very early on in this mural tradition. So you have these beautiful paintings of the 4 cosmic trees with birds sitting in the trees. You have this birth of a maize god, and then the maize god gets taken over and enthroned in this scaffold. Some incredible imagery, and it's from very early on. And it shows just the delicacy that these artists had with the paintbrush. Incredible technique from very early on in Maya civilization. And that gets transformed, it changes during the classic period. In the post-classic, you have this really interesting tradition, like that shows up at Tulum, of the diving god. So they have these figures who are kind of inverted, and you can see them coming down, and there's all kinds of theories about what they're connected to.
They're all fabulous sites, and really close to Tulum. Tulum, wow. Driving through the city of Tulum, it's like on the beach, so it's like one resort after another. They're all like beautiful eco-health resorts. At night, it's party, 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 and I mean, you can hear the music and everything, and the food. I mean, I was lucky enough to go to the Wine and Food Festival in Cancun and met many of the restaurateurs, and after this long road through Tulum, you get to Sian-Kaan, which is a bioreserve.
Right.
And they have like the mangroves growing up from the swamps, and those are like the plants that breathe and that keep the whole ecosystem going.
And that's where you see the connection of the religion to the environment. I mean, it's very clear. You go to these bioreserves and you see that there's this distinction between all the stuff that's going on above the trees, the stuff that's going on between the trees and the ground, and there's a lot of stuff down underneath in the watery underworld. So if you're talking about a swamp, I mean, part of the stuff in the water there is part of the underworld. It's the same underworld that's connected to the caves where you have bats and you have water, lakes, all kinds of animals living down there. So you can see these different regions as parts of a cosmology, part of the Mayan cosmology built around their environment. And it becomes very clear in these bioreserves how they were doing that.
And in Sian-Kaan, they use green energy. They use like the toilets. You throw like sawdust sort of down the toilet when you're finished, and the showers, like it tastes salty. The water is salty, and it's wonderful. You're sleeping in cabanas. They're not like real, you're sleeping like in really wonderful tents on the water with the sound of the ocean. And at night, you sit out on the beach talking till 4 and 5 in the morning, looking at the stars.
You're definitely immersed in the environment in many ways.
Wind-powered energy, gourmet food.
I haven't visited there. But no, there's definitely a whole lot of these eco tourist spaces opening up throughout the Maya area.
And in Cancun too, there's a few eco hotels. I mean, you've got to preserve the planet because, I mean, cutting down all the mangroves and, you know, to construct more and more resorts, you know, for money, it's like, you know, like, you need to preserve the planet or else we won't have a planet. But that's another platform and another show.
It's another show.
Near about an hour outside of, when you leave Tulum, Playa del Carmen, more than just, it's the party city, is, well, Cozumel, I guess, is across the
jump off point to Cozumel, right?
But Playa del Carmen has like so many fun things to do, like, and that are also like, oh God, Xcaret.
It's yeah, the X is funny in Mayan language. It's a sh as opposed to.
How do you
X.
say it?
So Xcaret.
Xcaret. And they have, it's wonderful. I mean, they give like a whole presentation of real Maya. It's done like, it's at night, it's after everything. It looks like you're on a ball court and people come out riding horses in the colorful costumes to music, and it's beautiful. And you want to spend all day there. There's many of these jungle eco resorts that you can go to. You get to, you can swim with dolphins, you can snorkel through the waters. They have sharks. They have manta rays, stingrays. They have manatees. Wow. They have pumas. Oh boy, I caught the pumas making babies on video.
On video.
They have jaguar. They've got the spotted jaguar and a black jaguar, rare, I think.
All of which we find in the Maya hieroglyphic texts. So we have images of all these different animals, written both kind of in full form. So sometimes when you're looking at Maya hieroglyphic writing, you'll say, oh, that looks like the head of a jaguar. Well, it actually is the word balam for jaguar. So sometimes they'll write it that way.
Ekbalam.
Right? And Ekbalam, the site, right? So sometimes they'll write it that way. Sometimes they'll write it just completely with sounds. So they can write, a good example would be Pachan, which is the site of Yaxchilan, and they'll show you an image of a glyph that's a sky ripping in half, which is what Pachan means. So sometimes it can be kind of a picture, sometimes it can just be sounds put together that give you the word that you're supposed to say.
And I missed the Ekbalam site, I'm sad. Yeah. And I'm told that there's either writing or something in the site that says something about that he will come and ascend, which made me, and it was done after Christ, so I'm thinking that might be what they're talking about, I don't know.
I don't know if that's, I know that there's the descent that's really caused a lot of stir because it's at Tortuguero, Monument 6. And this is the one that people have tried to connect to 2012 because it actually records the date that people translate to 2012, December 21st. And the first way that scholars read it was Bolon Yokte will descend. And so people were saying, oh,
maybe that's it.
So here's this guy that we know from classic times, and he's going to descend on this date. Maybe he's going to descend and do some bad things.
Or good.
Or good things. We don't know. But the thing is again, there's so many reasons to complicate that picture. The most fundamental one is that the monument itself is broken, and the crack runs exactly through the verb telling us what that figure Bolon Yokte was supposed to do. So the first readings of he's going to descend were, again, kind of iffy.